Wait until you see what happens next. It's unbelievable. And the truth is, it has been forming in the quiet places of your life long before anyone noticed. You have been watching the clock, judging your timeline against other people's highlight reels, feeling the pressure to move, to perform, to make visible progress. You have been told rest is earned, or that slowing down equals failure. You have believed the lie that momentum only counts when it's loud. I'm here to tell you something different, something that will change how you think about the breaks, the delays, the empty inboxes, and the unanswered calls. You are not stalled. You are being readied. This season of seeming pause is not punishment. It is not a void of meaning. It is a deliberate season of alignment, a focused hush where what is essential is being clarified, where your capacity is being rebuilt from the inside out. What looks like inactivity to the crowd is actually one of the most active things a soul can do. Calibrating, listening, letting standards reassert themselves. While the world applauds constant motion, wisdom often works in silence. If this is landing with you, if you feel the weight of weary busyness or the relief of a retreat you didn't choose, subscribe and stay with me. We need to walk this edge together, and there is more to come. The first thing to understand is that rest can be strategy. Rest can be intention. There is resting that means surrender, and there is resting that means preparation. They look similar on the surface, but they serve different functions. Surrender says, I cannot control this. Preparation says, I will steward this. Surrender may heal what breaks you. Preparation shapes what comes after the healing. Both are holy when they come from honest hands, but the kind of rest I'm naming now is tactical. It is the work of pruning, of refusing the next frantic sprint until you are steady enough to hold it. Think of a seed under winter soil. To walk over the frost and see nothing is to mistake the season. Beneath that frozen top, roots are weaving. The life that will explode in spring is being assembled quietly. It is not the seed's fault that it cannot show its blossom in January. It is doing the only work it can do, deepening, securing, reaching. You are like that seed. Your unseen labor matters because it creates the structure for what will suddenly, astonishingly arrive. Now consider the opposite. Grind culture. It is loud, proud, and measurable by the number of hours stamped on an app. Grinding says more activity equals more worth. Grind measures value by exhaustion. It confuses busyness for blessing and hustle for holiness. But when everything is action, there's no space to listen. There's no margin to notice how your inner compass is shifting, no capacity to reject an invitation that drains you, to let a relationship fall away, to say no to work that asks too much of your soul. Grind culture applauds the quantity of sacrifice and often misses the quality of fruit. Hibernation is not the same as giving up. Hibernation is a posture. It is a chosen contraction before expansion. Animals withdraw not because the world has rejected them, but because timing matters. Bears sleep until the spring signals it's time to move. They do not run in January hoping to find May. They rely on an internal attunement to the season. You too are being taught seasonal wisdom, to hold still until the conditions align, until the window opens and you step into the launch with both precision and peace. There are signs that you are in this kind of preparation. They are subtle, and they will feel uncomfortable at first because they go against the grain of what you once thought success required. One sign is detachment. You begin to feel less urgency about external approval. Comments no longer set your heartbeat. Likes and accolades lose their power to define you. You feel a gentle loosing from the need to prove. That loosening is not failure. It's liberation. It's the beginning of an internal standard that will not bend to every voice. Another sign is clarity. Not sudden, flashy clarity like a solved puzzle, but a slow, brightening sense of who you are and what you will no longer accept. You will start to notice what drains you, what distracts you, what misaligns with your purpose. Your boundaries sharpen not out of bitterness, but out of preservation. When you lower tolerance for what was once normal and raise your standard for the company you keep and the work you accept, you are not becoming proud. You are becoming available for what is next. A third sign is relationship reshaping. Some friendships that were warm in the past will feel like cold rooms now. Partnerships that fit when you were different will not fit the you being formed. People will step away and people will step forward. This is painful. Let's name that. Loss can sting. Change can be lonely. But some relationships fall away because they were not built to bear the impact you will soon hold. The ones that remain are the ones that will have the capacity to receive your future, to support a life that moves at a new scale. Let me give you a few snapshot examples. Not fairy tales, not promises, but real human patterns you might recognize. Imagine a woman named Mara who had always found her identity in being the fastest responder, the one who never missed a meeting, the person whose schedule was full of favors and side projects. For years, she equated speed with worth. Then exhaustion made a clearer choice for her. A season of forced quiet after a breakdown of her body's limits. In that quiet, she learned discipline in a different key. She practiced saying no. She stopped accepting invitations that chipped away at her rest. 2 years later, an opportunity arrived. An invitation to lead a new initiative that required measured, calm leadership. Because Mara had learned endurance rooted in rest and boundaries, she could hold a high-pressure role without losing herself. Others saw the shift as sudden. The people closest to her had watched the slow rehearsal behind the scenes. Or think of Isaiah, a man who'd spent a decade proving himself in an industry that worshipped hustle. When the project he poured himself into collapsed, everyone assumed he had failed. He stepped back without fanfare, moved to a smaller apartment, simplified his life, cultivated a small circle, and began practicing unglamorous habits. Reading, reflecting, rebuilding a rhythm for his body and mind. 2 years later, an investor reached out with a partnership that needed not frantic energy, but sober judgment. Isaiah's calm thinking and refined priorities made him the rare fit. What looked like a gap on his resume was actually an incubation period for a precision moment. You may recognize your own outline in these stories. You may have felt the shame of stepping back, or the temptation to rush back into visibility to prove something. Resist that urge. The movement you are preparing for will not be satisfied by louder noise. It requires readiness, presence, not panic, clarity, not clamor, steadiness, not scramble. Part of what happens in this quiet season is that your intuition sharpens. You begin to trust impressions that once seemed too soft to follow. You start to notice small openings that others ignore because they are waiting for a blare. You will find that the right opportunities show up in ways that require discernment. The right moment seldom shouts, it nudges. And because you have been listening, you will be one of the few prepared to say yes at the exact moment that matters. There is a paradox to this. The impact you are being prepared for will feel sudden to observers. They will see a door open and call it instantaneous. They will point to the visible event and miss the invisible months or years that steadied you. The surprise is real, but the surprise is not magic in the sense of unexplainable luck. It is the logical outcome of careful, patient, invisible work. It is like a wave rising silently in the deep until it finally crests and breaks on the shore. To someone standing on the sand, it appears to come out of nowhere. To the ocean, it was a long reordering of pressure and current. This is where precision becomes important. You are not being prepared to run faster at the wrong thing. The secret is not simply speed, it is readiness with accuracy. Preparation hones your discernment so that when an opportunity arrives, you can step into it without compromising your integrity, your calling, or your well-being. You will meet the moment not as a frantic rescuer, but as a calm steward. Let me be clear about something else. This season is not a license to stay passive. Rest as strategy still calls for active tending. It looks like small, sovereign acts, saying no to one more commitment, keeping an appointment with silence, preserving margin in your calendar, consulting trusted friends, engaging in practices that restore your nervous system. You are not withdrawing because you are afraid. You are withdrawing because you are fashioning a vessel that can contain what is about to be poured in. That takes work, quiet, patient work. You will notice an internal recalibration of standards. Things that once seemed tolerable will no longer sit right with you. You will be surprised at how quickly you stop making room for gossip, low-level drama, or projects that demand your sacrifice without reciprocity. This is not prideful selection, it is spiritual discernment. It is learning to protect what you will eventually steward. As your standards shift, so will your circle. Sometimes that change is a liberation, sometimes it is a grief. Hold both truths, grief that accompanies loss, gratitude that accompanies preservation. There will be times when doubt sneaks in. You will ask, is this really preparation or am I wasting time? Will I miss my chance if I wait? These are legitimate questions and they deserve honest answers. The answer is rarely absolute. There are seasons when action is necessary now, when delaying would be irresponsible. But more often than not, the frantic pace of do-moreism is a poor advisor. Let discernment guide you. Ask what kind of action is called for, a sprint or a strategic pause. The wise pause is not avoidance, it is stewardship. Let me tell you how divine timing, or call it providence, or luck tempered by readiness, shows up. It rarely arrives with neon signs. It arrives as a quiet alignment. Conversations fall into place, a person appears who holds a place in your life that complements your new boundaries. An idea that had been forming finds the right partner, an institution notices the steadiness you have been cultivating and invites you into a role that requires long-haul composure rather than short-lived showmanship. The result feels instantaneous. For others, it is a mystery. For you, it is familiar because you have been rehearsing for it. And so we come to the moment the title hints at, the pivot. The phrase hangs in the air like a promise. Wait until you see what happens next. This is the line where the quiet meets the visible. It is where the seed pushes up through the soil. It is where the door opens and you realize the corridor was being cleared while you slept. I want you to feel the tension of that sentence. Do not let it become an empty tease. Instead, let it steady you. The next will arrive not as a reward for showmanship, but as the consequence of preparation. Picture this. A heavy door you assumed was locked, all your life swings open. You step through and find a room built precisely for you. Not by coincidence, but because the people who made that room were moved by what you quietly became. Or imagine a still lake. For months you practiced patience, learning timing and restraint. One morning a fish breaks the surface, and because you had patience and presence, you are there, net in hand, ready. The surprise is real. The legwork was invisible. You must commit to a few practical truths if you want to steward your season of rest into a launch. First, guard your attention fiercely. Your time is not a commodity to be traded for endless inputs that fragment your focus. Second, practice humility in the slow work. There is dignity in small acts of faithfulness, showing up to build your craft, even when the crowd is elsewhere. Third, cultivate companions who can see you clearly and who will tell you the truth gently. You need witnesses who will remind you of your identity when you forget, not entertainers who feed your fears. There is a danger to avoid, mistaking loneliness for spiritual prestige. Some will romanticize your quiet. Others will assign you more meaning than you feel. Resist the temptation to make your rest a performance. Quiet seasons are intimate and particular. They are not invitations to be enigmatic or to hoard suffering into spiritual trophies. Stay humble. Stay teachable. Let the silence be a mirror, not a banner. Now, as the tension rises, let me return to the promise. Wait until you see what happens next. It's unbelievable. You will stand in a moment that appears sudden, and you will feel both shock and familiarity. You will recognize the person who steps forward, because the person has been rehearsed in the silence. Doors will open that match your newly calibrated standards. Opportunities will present themselves that do not require you to shrink again. They will ask you to expand into the capacity you have been building. The shift will feel like a surge, because it is a compression of years into a single, visible event. Others will call it overnight. You will know the truth. It was never overnight. It was steady, patient, exacting work and rest braided together. When that moment comes, do not be surprised if your first instinct is disbelief. We are trained to look for evidence before we move. We want proof. But now, because you have trained in quiet, you will sometimes need to act on a soft confirmation rather than loud proof. That is not recklessness. It is a faithfulness to the signals your interior life has been cultivating. Move with courage, with discerned calm. You won't need to prove your worth to anyone. The work will speak. You may also find that the breakthrough does not conform to your image of success. It may be quieter, kinder, more sustainable. It might be a relationship that finally honors your boundaries, a project that calls you into disciplined creativity, a role that allows you to steward others with the gentleness you've been taught. Expect the mismatch between your old fantasies of speed and the new reality of sustainable expansion. The new path will require a sturdiness you did not have before. You are not being prepared for spectacle. You are being readied for impact that lasts. As we move toward the close, I want to give you a practical anchor. Rest with intention. Make a list of 3 things you will refuse for the sake of readiness. Name the relationships you will protect and the habits you will cultivate. Decide on one small rhythm, a short morning silence, a weekly Sabbath of disconnection, a monthly check-in with a trusted friend, and keep it. These are not dramatic gestures. They are stitches in a garment that will one day be worn publicly. They are the quiet architecture of future capacity. And know this, you are allowed to grieve what you lose. Let grief have a seat at the table. Let it be honest, but do not let grief become a reason to return to old patterns. Use grief as a teacher about what you loved and what you must protect moving forward. Finally, as you wait, practice gratitude for the shaping. Say thank you, not as a talisman, but as recognition. Gratitude helps you see the ways God, or Providence, or the aligning forces around you are working in small, consistent gestures. If you center faith language, pray with open hands, not demanding an outcome, but asking for steadiness, discernment, and the patience to remain quiet when necessary. If you use secular language, speak to your own sense of purpose, name the values you're cultivating, and recommit to them daily. Wait until you see what happens next. It will feel unbelievable because the world will measure it by suddenness. You will know it by the coherence of your life. You will know it by the friends who remain, by the clarity that steadies your steps, by the way your heart no longer rushes to be seen but is ready to steward. This is not an assurance that every difficulty will evaporate overnight. It is an assurance that the season of quiet is doing something that matters. It is building a platform under your feet. Before we close, take a breath and place your hand on the smallest commitment you can keep today, a 10-minute quiet, a conversation you need to have, a line drawn for your own protection. Do one small thing that says to the future, I am ready to be prepared. Comment below. What are you letting go of in this season? Share this with someone who needs permission to rest. Tell them you do not have to prove your readiness by noise. You can be patient and precise. You can be still and strategic. You can wait. And when the moment comes, you will not only be surprised, you will be prepared. May you be held in the hush. May your standards rise. May your heart be steady enough to meet the surprising, precise gift that has been forming quietly, waiting for you to open the door. Stay rested. Stay attentive. The next thing is on its way, and when it arrives, you will be able to receive it with a soul that has been carefully readied.